I was a true believer. Of course, we all wanted to save the earth, and I was one of those, I guess you could say, diehard environmentalists. There had been a sea change in the culture coming from the top. The environment was now going to be used to sell the whole restructuring of the Earth's political and economic system as per the Rio Earth Summit of 1992. And it was sold to the public kind of under the rubric of eco-spirituality. You know, Sting was there, and the Dalai Lama and the Rainforest Indians and all the 5,000 NGOs, etc. We're all there to help us sell what really amounts to, the prototypical world government under UN auspices. All of these things had been well prepared in advance. And the United States, in fact, signed on to the UN Agenda 21, Agenda for the 21st Century, and as did another 178 countries, which is now termed UN Agenda 2030. But around the year 2000, I started realizing that this was a propaganda, that this was a political hijacking of aspects of science, especially climatology. The bottom line is that this environmental movement has been co-opted to sell this political New World Order, and the centerpiece of that, of course, is the man-caused global warming, fraud, because it doesn't stand up to the very basics of a scientific hypothesis, let alone a theory, and that it's disproven by pretty much all of Earth science. And again, there's the propaganda. There is the eco-spirituality as a religion. You know, like I say, we now capitalize Earth, the E on Earth. And the young are falling in for this propaganda, just like I did. It sounds like a good cause. And, you're going to save the Earth from those bad old corporations. It is a kind of a soft communism then, this push for Agenda 21. It's trying to move us into a deindustrialized slave state. So when you start looking deeply at this thing, it's really quite alarming. It's really quite totalitarian. But meanwhile, we're moving towards this global government under the UN, which is spelled out in Agenda 2030. Most scientists are very highly educated. They're very highly specialized. Of course, by the time they, get out of graduate school with a master's or a doctorate or a postdoc, they're probably in debt and they very much need to get a job. So oftentimes they wind up, going where the jobs are and doing what the job requires. Now, they may have started out with lots of idealism, but that idealism may have been, kind of whittled away rather quickly or maybe over the long term. We're in a false reality matrix. And these guys, they hate God. They hate nature. And they want to substitute, the unnatural for the natural. Now we're going to believe the computer models, and the computer models, they say whatever, based on however we program them, they will give the results we need. So there's this false parallel reality that's been constructed. And of course, if you're a young person and your eyes are buried in your cell phone and your computer all the time, you really don't have much connection with nature anyway. And it's very easy to pull you into that false reality. And I think there's a fear component. If somebody's been beaten down, brainwashed, then, there's a power relationship. You're going to believe it because it's safer to believe it than it is to question it. Political point of view, the science is to be used, but a politician wouldn't look at it that way. He would look at it as one more card to play in a kind of a strategic ongoing war. These are the master planners who met secretly. And this idea was picked up in the Club of Rome, saying, we can use shortages of raw materials and the threat of global warming to get what we want politically.
Even today, the masses, outraged over the carnage that big oil has wrought, are content to have that outrage directed by the very oligarchs they seek to oppose. The same oligarchs who are quietly funding and supporting their environmental movement from behind the scenes, and even leading it from the front. Carbon rationing, carbon trading, carbon taxes, cap and trade. These measures are sold to the public as a way of penalizing the big oil interests that have spent the last century monopolizing the world's key resources and plundering the earth in the pursuit of profit. What they do not understand, because it has been deliberately obscured, is that it is these very interests that have been instrumental in creating these schemes in the first place. The technocratic agenda is not about saving the earth. It is not about helping the public. It is not even about making money. It is about complete control over every aspect of our daily life. And now, in the 21st century, that technocratic vision is coming into view. And it is being helped along by a public that believes the post-carbon future represents the end of the oligarchy. They couldn't be more wrong. It was never about oil. It was about control. Control over energy and production and consumption. Control over the world's resources. Control over the population. Control over humanity itself.
We are very much attached to the same values, and especially liberty and peace. And I think the US today has a very strong role to play for peace in different regions of the world, and especially Middle East. And I think is one of the last resort player for this peace and for multilateralism. So I will advocate for multilateralism in front of the Congress for that, which means playing all together in order to reduce the influence and the power of some rogue states and obviously fight against terrorism together. We will have to build the new Syria afterwards, and that's why I think the US role is very important to play. Why? The day we will have finished this war against ISIS, if we live, definitely and totally, even from a political point of view, we will leave the floor to the Iranian regime, Bashar al-Assad and these guys. And they will prepare the new war. They will fuel the new terrorists.
We can build the 21st century world order based on a new breed of multilateralism, based on a more effective, accountable, and results-oriented multilateralism, a strong multilateralism. This requires, more than ever, the United States' involvement, as your role was decisive for creating and safeguarding today's free world. The United States is the one who invented this multilateralism. You are the one now who has to help to preserve and reinvent it. With the US President, with the support of every 535 members of this joint session, representing the whole American nation, we can actively contribute together to building the 21st century world order for our people.
I heard a noise outside. Somebody was shouting that we had to go to the hospital, so we went there. When I came in, some people grabbed me, started pouring water over my head.
I didn't hear anything about a chemical attack. I was outside, but I didn't notice anything. I went to the hospital, walked upstairs and found my wife and children. I asked them what had happened, and they said people outside were shouting about some smell and told them to go to the hospital. At the hospital, they gave dates and cookies to the kids.
Wenn man die Dinge sachlich betrachtet, muss man sagen, ein ganz klarer Völkerrechtsbruch. Es gab überhaupt gar keine Legitimation für diesen Angriff auf syrisches Territorium. Egal, was man jetzt von diesem Regime hält oder nicht, es gab kein UN-Mandat, gar nichts. Es war eine einseitige Entscheidung der USA, diese Angriffe durchzuführen mit Hilfe Großbritanniens und Frankreich. Und das wird aus Sicht der Syrer und vieler anderer in der Region als eine Art imperialer Akt gewertet. Es geht hier um einen Stellvertreterkrieg in Syrien, das muss man sehen. Es geht hier nicht wirklich um Giftgas oder nicht Giftgas. Es geht um die Frage, wer behält die Vorherrschaft in Syrien, die USA oder Russland, Israel oder der Iran. Die Gefahr einer Eskalation, die besteht in der Tat, denn alle hier involvierten Mächte sind nicht gewillt, der jeweils anderen Seite den Sieg in Anführungsstrichen zu überlassen. Was die Syrer wollen oder nicht wollen, interessiert ohnehin niemanden mehr von den äußeren Mächten. Und die nächste Konfrontation zeichnet sich ab. Im Mai wird Präsident Trump aller Voraussicht nach das Atomabkommen mit dem Iran aufkündigen, obwohl es funktioniert, obwohl die Iraner sich an alle Bestimmungen halten. Und es ist zu befürchten, dass Syrien auch weiterhin Auseinandersetzungen auf sich ziehen wird, militärischer Art, jetzt zwischen Russland und den USA und in einem Monat dann möglicherweise zwischen Israel und dem Iran. Das Besorgniserregende ist, dass Fakten in der internationalen Politik immer weniger eine Rolle spielen. Wir haben das im Fall Skripal schon gesehen in Großbritannien. Es wird eine Behauptung aufgestellt und sofort finden Aktionen statt, die aber auf eine Konfrontation hinauslaufen zwischen den USA und Russland. Es gibt Akteure in der internationalen Politik, die glauben, sie könnten Russland, dem Iran oder anderen nicht-westlichen Akteuren ihren Willen aufzwingen. Und das ist eine sehr, sehr gefährliche Haltung, die eines Tages wirklich zu einer Explosion führen könnte, auch in Syrien.
If you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region.
Israel sees, as do the neoconservatives in this country, they see this chaos in the Middle East as conducive to their security, but also as sort of allowing them to do their full greater Zionist strategy, which is to get as much territory as they can, as fast as they can. And they want this condition to continue. They want it ultimately to lead to the breaking up of Syria, the breaking up of Iraq, if it can happen, and the regime change in Iran. And they see this chaos and this constant conflict in the United States, instrumental to that, as being the strategic means by which to accomplish this purpose. So they are in no way wanting this conflict to end. They want it to continue and to continue and continue. That's Israel's policy. Bibi Netanyahu and Avigdor Lieberman, as defense minister, are, one, trying to emphasize everything they can about Iran's perfidy so that they make sure that Donald Trump exits the nuclear agreement with Iran. The second thing I'm hearing, and this is more fundamental, is that Israel is preparing everyone in the region, itself, the United States, its sugar daddy, for more robust Israeli military action inside Syria and possibly inside Lebanon as well. I think we're looking at what could grow and grow and grow as Israel finds no check on its power and finds that it is actually delivering body blows, so to speak, to both Hezbollah and Iran inside Syria. So look for more of this. Iran will respond. They will respond in time and in a means by means that they find conducive to their interests. We may not see it at all, but Israel will certainly feel it. What that means is probably other than conventional military strike back. It could mean Hezbollah missiles. That's what Netanyahu and Lieberman, I think, are trying to elicit. They would like some missiles shot at them. Their excuse for doing even more and perhaps even entering the fray with armored artillery and other forces than just their air force.
We fully trust the work, the competence, and the autonomy of the International Atomic Energy Agency that has published 10 reports certifying that Iran has fully complied with its commitments. And let me say I'm particularly worried by the announcement tonight of new sanctions. We expect the rest of the international community to continue to do its part to guarantee that it continues to be fully implemented for the sake of our own collective security. Do not let anyone dismantle this agreement.
Estados Unidos nunca ha cumplido con sus compromisos bajo el acuerdo nuclear. El pueblo de Irán, en base a lo que reconoce la Agencia Internacional de Energía Atómica, ha cumplido con sus obligaciones. El gobierno de Irán ha cumplido con todo lo que le corresponde en el marco del acuerdo nuclear. Pero hoy somos testigos de que un país que no respeta los compromisos internacionales, el acuerdo nuclear no es un acuerdo entre Irán y Estados Unidos, que Estados Unidos quiera que se retira de este acuerdo. El Plan Integral de Acción Conjunta es un acuerdo multilateral e internacional. Es un acuerdo que está confirmado por parte del Consejo de Seguridad de la ONU y la resolución 2231. Entonces, Estados Unidos de forma oficial anunció que no cumple y que no hace caso a los compromisos internacionales. Yo he mandado a la Cancillería que en cuestión de unas semanas, manteniendo diálogos con los países europeos y otros dos grandes países como Rusia y China, realice las coordinaciones y consultas necesarias. Si al final de este corto plazo de tiempo llegamos a ese resultado, que con la cooperación de 5 países se puede satisfacer los intereses del pueblo de Irán bajo el acuerdo nuclear, pese a la voluntad de Estados Unidos y el régimen sionista, y pese a sus esfuerzos y los insultos de Trump, el acuerdo sigue vigente y nosotros podemos, a favor de la paz y del mundo, dar pasos al respecto. Y si vemos que no se garantizan nuestros intereses, yo pronto voy a hablar con el pueblo de Irán y explicaré las decisiones del sistema y del gobierno al respecto, pero enfatizo una vez más que el pueblo no debe tener ninguna preocupación, ninguna inquietud sobre el futuro del país.
Facebook is essentially without competition at this point. That's what makes it partly so powerful. By promising to keep the data completely secure from now on, they're still not dealing with the fact that they are collecting an enormous amount of data. And that is not just what you voluntarily shared. So a lot of people saying, you know what, I don't care. I told Facebook where my college is, what my political views are, and I told Facebook the pages I like, and that's okay. But that's not all it collects. It purchases data from data brokers. You know, there's your shopping habits. It collects data while you're browsing across the web by tracking pixels. It tracks you across devices. Facebook tracks people who don't even use the platform. They have shadow profiles. So this kind of surveillance machine, which is then used where the data is used to target you, is dangerous on its own. Now, a lot of people mistakenly think that Facebook sells your data. Facebook doesn't sell your data. Facebook sells you, right? Facebook's selling your attention. What happens now with artificial intelligence is that computers can take seemingly unrelated data, things like your Facebook likes, your posting frequency, the sort of the semantic tone of your words, and it can predict things like whether you're likely to enter into clinical depression, or whether you're likely, say, to enter a manic phase if you have bipolar mental health issues before the onset of clinical symptoms. So the computer can, you know, if with enough data about you, and it's not a lot of data, it's definitely the kind of data Facebook has on you, you can predict people's likelihood of entering a depressive state or a manic state in the next few months before we even have a clinical test for it, because there are no clinical symptoms. So we could enter into a phase of what I term surveillance authoritarianism, where we don't face the kind of 1984 model where there's open totalitarianism, where we're kind of dragged off in the middle of the night kind of situation, but we're silently and quietly and person by person, screen by screen, nudged and manipulated according to our individual vulnerabilities. That kind of authoritarianism would even be hard to realize. You'd just be sort of like being nudged here and there are these slow changes over time. And that's what's scary. That's what we got to get ahead of and not end up there.
Silicon Valley is now the center of the greatest concentration of surveillance and censorship power the world has ever seen. And what we saw with Cambridge Analytica was the tip of the iceberg of what happens to the information that Facebook receives. So the diversion here is that Facebook is gathering this mass of fine detail information because they want to make lots of money targeting you with targeted advertisements. That's only one level of it. That's the cover story. And so what we have is a mass surveillance operation to serve the people behind it all, which is the intelligence community and the Pentagon. The real owners are not the Zuckerbergs, and they're not the Pages and the Brins. They're the hidden hand in all its forms that is so centralizing the communication of information that almost incomprehensibly small number of people now dictate globally what people see and don't see. Is it really a coincidence that the technology that eventually became known as Google was seed funded by the intelligence community and DARPA? Is it really a coincidence that the same is true of Facebook? Is it yet another coincidence that this technology, known as Siri and Echo, this so-called digital assistant technology, which is fusing the human mind into AI through that interaction, is it another coincidence that that technology was seed funded by DARPA in its development? There are two timelines. There's the one you see in the public arena, and there's the one you don't see. The one you don't see in terms of technological advancement is light years ahead of the one you do see. So every time they need the next stage of the technological development to take this agenda on, it appears miraculously out of nowhere. This is unfolding and being played out in a sequence, and humanity is being played like a stringed instrument, thinking that it's all random and it's just geeks in a garage coming up with this stuff. And just by coincidence, it's exactly the time that this hidden hand needs that technology to move on to the next stage. We are looking at a global network of surveillance that would make George Orwell wince, shake his head and say, "I underplayed it. It was much worse than I thought."
Was jetzt passiert, ist, dass es einen großen Aufruhr gibt und das wird weitergehen, das wird über Monate gehen und es wird massiv Druck auf Facebook, auf die ganzen Datenkraken geben, auf das gesamte Daten, wie gehen wir mit Daten um? Diese Diskussion wird jetzt ganz groß geführt. Welche Konsequenz hat das? Es wird dazu führen, dass Gesetze erlassen werden, Selbstverpflichtungen, es werden neue Standards gesetzt werden, dass Daten grundsätzlich nicht mehr weitergegeben werden dürfen. Beim letzten Weltwirtschaftsgipfel in Davos wurde von den großen Internetkonzernen, wurde den Regierungen ein Dokument übergeben, ein Angebot, ein Masterplan, das heißt The Known Traveler. Diese Unternehmen sagen, die Bürger sollen wieder die Hoheit über ihre Daten haben. Niemand darf auf deren Daten zugreifen, es sei denn, der Bürger erlaubt es freiwillig. Und schlagen damit den Regierungen vor, die internationale Sicherheit zu privatisieren und zu übernehmen. Sie sagen, wir sind mit unserer künstlichen Intelligenz in der Lage, die Datenströme, die Daten, die über einen Menschen vorliegen, wir haben die ja alle. Wir können da unsere Analysen drüber laufen lassen. Und es gibt ja Studien aus den USA, dass man mit dieser künstlichen Intelligenz in der Lage ist, mit 150 Facebook-Likes, die Sie gemacht haben, Ihren Charakter und Ihre wesentlichen Merkmale besser zu definieren, als Ihr Ehepartner das könnte. Und wenn Sie jetzt überlegen, welche Datenmassen über Sie über die letzten Jahre bei diesen großen Konzernen aufgelaufen sind, von Google bis Facebook etc., dann wissen Sie, dass die Sie mit Ihren künstlichen Intelligenzen besser analysieren können als Sie sich selbst, weil Sie sich gefiltert wahrnehmen und die nicht. Und jetzt haben die das Angebot gemacht, wir übernehmen die Sicherheitsüberprüfung eurer Bürger an den Stellen, wo es nötig ist, zum Beispiel beim Grenzübertritt. Wenn der Bürger die Grenze überschreitet und will einreisen in ein anderes Land, dann hat er zwei Möglichkeiten. Bei Schalter 1 ist ein freundlicher Officer mit einem Computer. Und da gehen Sie hin, halten Ihr Handy vor und sagen, hier bitte, Sie haben Einblick in meine Daten, ich gebe Ihnen meine Daten frei. Und daraufhin lässt er Ihre Daten von diesem privaten Unternehmen, von diesem Konsortium, durchforsten, analysieren durch die künstliche Intelligenz. Das Ding sagt ihm, okay, der ist zu 95% nicht gefährlich und wünscht Ihnen gute Einreise. Sie haben Ihre Daten freiwillig zur Verfügung gestellt. Sie verfügen über Ihre Daten. Wenn Sie das nicht wollen, stellen Sie an Schalter 2 an. 2 Stunden Wartezeit, unfreundlicher Officer, dem Sie jetzt mal erklären, was Sie zu verbergen haben. Und wenn das lang genug gelaufen ist, wird man den Schalter 2 komplett schließen. Es gibt noch den Schalter 1. Das ist aber nur der erste Schritt und so steht es bereits in diesem Dokument. Der nächste Schritt wird sein, dass Sie das überall tun. Sie wollen einen Versicherungsvertrag, Sie wollen einen Kredit bei der Bank und so weiter und so weiter. Sie werden überall Ihre Daten freiwillig vorlegen oder nicht am Leben teilnehmen können. Sie haben wieder die Hoheit über Ihre Daten. Herzlichen Glückwunsch. Ihr Aufregen über die Datenkrake Facebook und dass die Daten weitergegeben haben, ist genau das, was gewollt ist. Die Weltbevölkerung soll sich empören, soll darauf bestehen, die Daten wieder in die eigene Entscheidungshoheit zu bekommen, um genau diesen Plan umzusetzen. Das wird jetzt weitergehen, das wird über Monate gehen, die Gesetze werden verabschiedet werden und am Ende haben wir die totale Kontrolle und sind dafür auch noch selbst verantwortlich.
The species that we refer to as the reptilians, they're not really third-dimensional species. They're fourth-dimensional, which means they inhabit what we call the lower astral realm, or the fourth dimension. They can go in and out of that at will, and it takes a lot of energy for them to manifest in the third dimension. So they prefer to stay in the fourth, and they affect us through the dreamscape and through the fourth dimension and through the astral, and that's how they program us mainly. But they do have a third dimensional component, and they basically live underground on this planet. There are some who are more advanced, which we call the Draco, who are taller and they have wings. Then there are reptiloids or reptoids who do not have the wings, and they're more of a worker group. And then they have sort of a warrior class too. But they're all part of the reptilian species. The reptilians that now inhabit this planet created hybrids, part human and part reptilian. And they are what we now refer to as the Illuminati. And they run the planet. They control this planet, and make no mistake about it, they control the media, they control the banks, they control the militaries, they control everything, and the technology. So the Illuminati definitely are the shapeshifters, because they have a very high component of reptilian blood, up to 45%. In other words, any percentage of reptilian blood up to 45% will allow that entity to shapeshift and to appear human or reptilian. So those are the shapeshifters. You know, since they do inhabit the fourth dimension, a lot of people get programmed at night in the dreamscape. They do have that ability and being in the fourth dimension to influence us when we are in a state of sleep or in a state of literally hypnosis.
Then again, we have TV programs again going back to in the 80s, V, where you see the ETs coming down saying we are friends and we're going to help you. But what it turns out to be is that they're reptilians and they loose you and take people for food. Because they use Hollywood all the time to tell us what's going on.
Absolutely. And of course that goes both ways, because Star Trek and Star Wars were the positive emanations of that, because George Lucas definitely had contact with ETs from the Federation, and so did Roddenberry. One of the goals that they have is to create a cyborg generation, humans that are part machine or part electronics and part human, because they can then plug those people into a central computer and control them completely. A lot of the artificial intelligence things they're doing are in that direction. If we can understand that and block that, keep that from happening, and if we can also stop the hybridization, creation of the hybrids, if we can do all of that, then I think we can win this game. The hybrids are basically not part human. They claim to be part human, but they're really reptilian. So you have to learn to discern those people and to recognize them. If you remember the movie Blade Runner, the only way we could distinguish between a robot and a human was through a very sophisticated eye test. Otherwise, they were absolutely identical to humans. And I think we're going to get to that point. We're going to have to learn to discern who is human and who is not. It's not going to be easy, because the technology is extremely, extremely sophisticated. The human race can reach into the higher dimensions. We have the ability to reach into the fifth, sixth dimensions even higher. The reptilians do not. So basically they are really afraid of us. They know what our potential is. They're keeping us under a blanket of ignorance and distraction. That way they can maintain their control. All we have to do is to raise our consciousness. That's the whole game. As our consciousness gets raised, if we can penetrate the blanket of ignorance that they've put in place and start to enhance our consciousness and our awareness, they can't control us any longer. The game is over. They can no longer lead us into warfare. They can no longer start eating us as food. In other words, they will have to depart the planet.
Western or European world, we are oriented to explaining health and performance practices in terms of anatomical and physiological function. However, in China, physical function is just one aspect of what the ancients called qi. The organs are responsible for the processes that sustain life. They are key locations for chemical interactivity, and in Chinese medicine, they are the focal areas for the interactivity of the qi. In the qi channel system, there is an energy channel for each of the organs, each of the glands, and the brain and spine. Sensations of function in all of these are equivalent to qi sensation. Breath, movement, mind focus, and self-applied massage all collaborate to enhance the efficiency of inner chemical activities. When you feel, is it chemistry or is it the qi? The relaxation response. When we practice Qigong and Tai Chi, the integration of breath, body, mind, and massage all contribute to the activation of the parasympathetic nervous system's healing neurohormones and the inhibition of the sympathetic system's action hormones. In the stress response, inner function, including oxidation and inflammation, decrease well-being and can cause disease. The relaxation response enhances the capacity, functional renewal and restoration, healing at levels as obvious as feeling relaxed and well, and at much deeper levels in the shift of the neurotransmitter profile, and even in the telomeres of the DNA. How amazing is all of this? These mind, body, and energetics practices, developed so many millennia ago, have influences on all the systems of the physical body. The totality of all physical function is very likely a direct equivalent of what the Chinese call qi. Here is the most interesting part. While physical function is internal energy, qi is not. In a way, we appear to be separate physical units, person to person. However, the qi is internal and external. Quiet the mind, feel the qi. Rather than think about what you should be feeling, notice what you are feeling. Maybe you have felt your own energy field, qi field. Is it possible that we are energetically connected with everyone and all things as a part of the totality of qi energy in the whole world? Are we even connected with the whole universe? The answer is yes.